I know people have class and other things. I'm Cynthia Godso. I teach here, including like criminal law and family law, sex crime seminar, and some other classes. And I'm the director of the Edward V. Sparrow Public Interest Law Fellowship Program. So I really appreciate people coming out on both sides of you guys there and people up here. I just want to be quick because I know a couple of panelists have to leave and it's most important to hear from them about their experiences, but then I'll be here afterwards for any questions. But basically the Sparrow Fellowship Program is a summer stipend to work in public interest work. So it's only for one summer, even though people apply at different times. So some people apply when they're applying to law school, some people apply as first years, some people apply as second years, or if you're part-time, just as long as you have a summer left. And it's $5,000 for 10 weeks of work. Just to be clear, public interest under the Sparrow definition does not include government work, or at least doesn't include work like that is funded sometimes by other fellowships, like for various government agencies or prosecutors' offices. But if you have questions, because I know sometimes there might be like the Environmental Protection Agency or something that has been funded, then talk to Danielle Sorkin in the Public Interest Center. She couldn't be here tonight, but she's very available to talk to people about applications. But the fellowship also is much more than just the stipend for one summer, so it's been around for over like 35, even 40 years. So there's like tons of alumni all over in all different places in New York and different agencies and organizations, and also nationwide and even internationally. And it's a big network and a big part of what is much bigger than Sparrow too, but the big public interest community here at BLS. So it has, we have lunches on different topics. So like this fall, for instance, there's going to be someone who's a teacher on wrongful convictions and exonerations in November, an amazing talk on the Brackeen, so the case is going to Supreme Court on the Indian Child Welfare Act and tribal sovereignty in October, and then we usually do an annual symposium as well in the spring. Yeah, I'm just going to say the application's online, but we can talk more about it afterwards because I really wanted you to hear from last summer's fellows. Some of them have to leave a little early about their experiences. So do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Rosalie. I'm a 2L here at Brooklyn. So about the Sparrow in general, especially for those of you who are 1L, you'll see like community is a big buzzword in law school, and everybody's trying to sell you the fact that like if you invest time within them, like you'll be part of a community or network or support. And so I can vouch that within Sparrow you will really find a sense of like you'll meet people like through lunches. Like it will also, at least it helped me like situate yourself within law school, because like you'll meet older students and you'll see like everything kind of clicks, like you start recognizing your TAs and you'll meet people with similar interests. So it's a nice program, and it kind of chapters the year nicely, and the lunches are very interesting. Brenna and I were just talking about this. And then last summer, I was at an organization called Make the Road New York. It's a great organization that does immigration law. I was doing immigration law, but they also do like housing justice and workplace justice. And they're a very good organization because they do a lot of organizing, and they teach you a lot as interns about what it means to be a movement lawyer, which are like things you may not hear about in law school, at least during your first year. But I was within immigration law, as I said. This is what I'm interested in. This is what I did before law school. So if you have any questions about this, even if you don't become a Sparrow Fellow, you can. And that's just two things I wanted to say. The first thing is that I don't know if that applies to any of you, but if you're an international student, it will be hard to get funding from the federal government. In fact, it will be impossible to get funding from the federal government to do any sorts of like public interest internships. So if you are, I would put that forward on your application, because I think the Sparrow committee is really receptive to that situation. And the second thing is, if you don't become a Sparrow Fellow, that's okay too, and you will be able to pursue the career that's interesting to you. And I would say that Jackie is a great resource for applications, regardless of whether or not you're a Sparrow Fellow. yeah, and I'll write my email address here so you can write it down if you have any question.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you. And there's also lists. I don't know if there's enough for everybody, but there's also a couple up here if people want. Sorry, before we move on to Sarah, I just wanted to also introduce Marva Skeen, who's in the back, who's a huge part of the SPARE program, and she's the person people submit applications to, and you can also email her with questions as well about things. So you can email any of us. And just to highlight Rosalie's point, it's definitely not the only public interest fellowship or community at Brooklyn. There's also obviously Blisby and lots more. But yeah, and the other thing I would say is a lot of times people, if you're a first year, will apply twice. Yeah. And again, that's not to say, I mean, there's just multiple points to get it, and it's not like the only option at all.
No, it's not the end of the world.
Sarah?
Okay, I will take my mask off to talk. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah. I'm a 2L. I use she, her pronouns. I would echo a lot of what Rosalie said. I also have connected to a ton of professors through SPARE, which has been really nice. It's just the professors that are part of SPARE are just so open and welcoming. And through those connections, I've actually kind of done a variety of different things. So I would add that maybe one piece to what Rosalie was saying. And then also some of my favorite people at BLS I met through SPARE. So not to say that you have to be in SPARE to be amazing, but some of the amazing people that I have met are through SPARE. And this summer I was at the Immigrant Defense Project. So they're a nonprofit in the city that specializes doing work at the intersection of immigration and criminal law. It's a pretty niche subject area, so if you're interested and want to talk, please let me know. But I can maybe speak a little bit to the work that I was doing with them, but I had known about them previously through work I had done before law school. But I got to work on a variety of things while I was there, so I did some legal research for a brief that was filed in the Ninth Circuit, trying to fight back against bad precedent on the definition of convictions under immigration law. I helped advise clients, both pro se and through advocates, on the impact of contact with the criminal legal system on their immigration status. I worked on a removal defense resource, so how to fight charges of deportability for people that had been charged with crimes of domestic violence. And I also did some analysis of FOIA production documents on particularly on internal ICE memos and policies. So it was kind of a really great spread of things that I was working on, and everyone there is insanely smart and super kind. So I would highly recommend, again, if you would like to talk about anything related to immigration, criminal law, all those things, I'll also share my email.
Hi everyone, my name's Alex and I'm a 3L, and I'm also very much available via email. My email though is alexandra.heiken, not Alex, so if you're writing anything down. Yeah, and so I was a SPARE this last summer, and just echoing the same sentiment that I applied twice. I applied once my 1L year, and I didn't get the SPARE funding, but I had a different fellowship and still did public interest, and then I applied again and became a part of this wonderful community. And so don't be deterred. It is not a reflection of you or anything, but it's a wonderful community to be a part of, regardless of what stage in your legal career you are at. And I don't know that I have much to add about how wonderful the community is. I feel like you guys both touched on everything that I had wanted to, so I'm just gonna hop right into my experience this summer. I worked at Advocates for Justice, which is a public interest litigation organization. So if you are interested in litigation, which a lot of public interest organizations are very direct services oriented, or don't necessarily have the fast-paced litigation, this was a great experience for that. And a lot of what they do is a variety of workplace discrimination claims, both in a lot in education and a lot in just your more traditional workplace. But about halfway through this summer, we took on a class action against the New York Department of Education for their unlawful budget cuts. And that was a very fast-moving, intense process where if you are interested in research and writing, it was basically the team of interns writing all of the motion papers for the temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunction with oversight from the lawyers. And so it was this incredible opportunity to get this real work feedback. And I know that that wouldn't happen every summer, but I do know that they take on those big cases. And so that was what my experience was, and I'm happy to talk about it more with anybody.
Great, thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Brianna. I'm a 3L. I interned at the American Bar Association. Similar to Alex and a few other people, I had applied for SPARE before and didn't get it. And then I got it this last summer. So I would definitely say don't be deterred. Keep doing a lot of public interest internships and opportunities to show that you're really interested. That looks really great on applications. Similarly, with my internship, I would also say for 1Ls especially, don't be deterred if you get several no's from internships. My 1L summer, I got 85 rejections before I got my first yes. So that's not to say that all happened to everyone. Obviously, there were some people that got yeses right away in January. I was not one of those lucky few. But nonetheless, I worked my way up to this wonderful organization, American Bar Association, where I worked in the Center for Human Rights and the Proxy Warfare Program. That's a lot of crazy, complicated things, but basically it was international law, and it was learning about illicit arms trade in the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa, also called Southwest Asia and North Africa region. So as you may or may not know, the U.S. is the largest exporter of arms in the world, and a lot of those arms get used by illegal proxies. So I was learning about the legal mechanisms behind that, and a lot of my work was more policy driven. I didn't really have a lot of cases or clients per se, but I did a lot of legal research. I watched some UN conferences, and which was really interesting. And I did some editing on a document that was just published called the Defense Industry Human Rights Due Diligence, which is a guideline of what defense industry people should do when they export arms. And I also got an article published in Open Global Rights about AI and autonomous weapons as a part of this internship with my wonderful mentor, Lana. So it was a really interesting summer. I was actually in DC for this summer, although they do remote internships as well, but I just really wanted the experience of doing something in person, being one of those people who was a 1L who had their whole 1L remote for the most part. So that was my choice, though. What else can I say? Just definitely be tenacious with your applications. Public interest can be kind of a hard thing, especially if, for me, I worked several years before I came to law school. It was in a transactional legal environment. It wasn't in public interest. So the switch to that and showing people, no, I've been passionate about this the whole time, but it doesn't go through in my resume is kind of hard. So definitely do those pro bono opportunities, get involved in organizations that you are passionate about. Shout out to International Law Society, I love them. So yeah, just definitely do that. And if you don't get SPARE the first time, try again with all the internships. You're gonna get it, and you're gonna work your way up, and you're gonna do great.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to just highlight a couple of points that they'll make. First of all, you can work anywhere in the country. So even some of them were in New York, like Brianna said, and there is sometimes a small amount of travel funding as well, but definitely not limited to New York. And I just want to emphasize what they said. One of the problems, so Brooklyn's one of the best schools in the country for public interest, which is probably law schools, which is probably why some of you are here or a big draw. And part of that is also then it's a really robust community, but it's also competitive in New York in general. But I definitely want to highlight that there are many people who applied multiple times for SPARE and other things, and just for it to be it really is. We also prioritize 2Ls if there's a mix because they only have one summer left. And also, that doesn't mean like 1Ls do get it, but I just mean like that means when you apply as a 2L. So just all of this is to say, I'm sure many of you will get things on the first try, whether it's fair or an internship, but just to hear from them, like it's not always the way, and it does take some tenacity, just public interest in general. I wanted to talk a little bit about the application, but I also know that some of them might have to leave first, so I wanted to give you guys questions. It could be also, give you guys a chance to ask questions about either their placements or just the fellowship experience overall or the application. And then I can also talk a little bit more about it. There's also, I know it's online and probably many of you looked, there's also some hard copies here if people are interested. Any questions? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm specifically interested in the international human rights law, so I'm also, I guess, interested to hear about like how like you were able to get some experience in international, like prior, or if you had any experience prior to your internship.
Yeah, so like I said, I was international law study. I was the president last year. So that was a big thing that I took initiative on, and I, did that. I also interned during the term, my spring of my 2L term at the Advocates for Human Rights. It was actually based out of Minnesota, but I did a remote internship. It was immigration based, but they also do international human rights in their organization. So that was a good name to have out there. It was a good name on my resume. And I also networked a lot. The person who I got this internship from, how I found out about this internship, she was a former BLS alum, Zumera, and she was with the Labor Department. And originally I had interviewed with her, and I thought this isn't the right fit for me. I really want to do proxy warfare. I saw that online, really great. I was like, can I interview with them? And she said, sure. And I actually had got this internship they gave me like a yes during the term of my spring term, but I'd already said yes to a different internship. So I said, no, I'm still really interested in this. Is there any way you can make summer happen? And they said, sure. So really just network with people. Anyone who's a BLS alum, look them up on LinkedIn. They're usually so open to talk to you. And also, if a lot of places, they all have different timelines of when you hear back and when you don't. So if you get a no or a yes, but you've already said yes to something else, see if you can make the summer work. There's no harm in doing that. But as far as international stuff goes, I took international law. I did International Law Society. I did that internship at the Advocates for Human Rights. And also before then, I was at the International Institute of Conflict Prevention Resolution, which is really an ADR society, but it's international. So that was a good one to have on your resume as well.
Great. And I just wanted to highlight the point about alums, we do have both within Spera, like I said, 40, I think almost 40 years. Marva, is it more than 40 years? I don't know. 35. Pardon me? 35, yeah, exactly. So, but also tons of other alums too. So definitely that can be really helpful, or even if they're not alums, but Brooklyn does have a really robust. And I also wanted to say, so a lot of times people come in with an interest that they know, but sometimes they don't necessarily, or they don't have experience in it, or they switch. And so I think it's really looking for a commitment or an interest in public interest or social justice or racial justice more broadly. And then it doesn't have to be sometimes people will be I'm coming in to be an immigration lawyer, and then they'll want to do criminal defense, and they're all, so it's not you have to have had, and some people are like that, they're for 10 years I've wanted to be, or 20 years a public defender, but it's definitely more the big commitment to social justice that the selection committee is looking for. And I should just add, the selection committee is made up of faculty members, not me specifically, but other faculty members and fellows together. Any other questions? Yeah?
So on your application, did you put a preference for which organization you wanted, or you just got randomly kind of mixed to choose from, or whatnot?
Yeah, why don't you guys answer and I can also weigh in.
I got this question. So you also interview for that through the application process, and somebody asked me like, do you already have your internship or what? So you're choosing your internship. You're not getting placed or getting paired with an organization. And at the time, I didn't have internship lined up. And so like for me, I knew the type of work I wanted to do. I knew the issues that I cared about, and I was just like looking for organizations that paired up with that, and like that was enough.
Yeah, but I think that like a little tip, and you can talk with us about this, is that even if you don't have an internship lined up, which you probably won't, and that's okay, because usually you will apply even in February with PILC. So yeah, so don't worry about that. But what you can do is like if you know the type of public interest law you're interested in, and it doesn't matter if it changes, but as of now, you can like look up a few organization and be like, we haven't applied yet because like the application cycles are not open, but like ideally we would want to work there. Like that will make you look serious and informed on your application.
Definitely. It's better to put some things down, although I think it's very unusual that someone would actually have a placement already. But to put some organizations down, and again, you could change or that might not work out, but just to show.
To show you've done your homework. Yeah.
Other questions, or does someone else want to weigh in on that? Okay. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm curious just to kind of like get a sense of like how you all end up finding these specific organizations. Like, how familiar were you with them kind of coming in versus were you just kind of like Googling around from ground zero?
Yeah.
Oh, this thing sounds cool. Just trying to get a sense of where you all were at.
Sure. I know you have to leave soon. So do you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, sorry, I have to leave after. I don't mean to steal the show. But yeah, sure. I'll answer quickly. Also, again, like I'm happy, and even if you don't get the spur, because I know like how overwhelming it can be to like go into public interest, and like to your point, like the organizations, like where do you start? So I don't know if how I found mine is relevant. I'll answer like how I think like it's best to go about it. I think that like what you want to do is like to reach out to someone from like the career center. I work with Jackie all the time. She's amazing. She's so responsive and reassuring. And like, I don't know if you have a particular interest or not, but kind of like to do a little intake session with her about like what are your interests, or maybe you don't know, and that's fine. And I think that like she or someone else from the career center like would be a great person to kind of like make a process of like in terms of how you're gonna go about this. And I think that like that is much more productive than like, actively looking up things on Google and on LinkedIn and alumni and like whatnot, and being overwhelmed and bookmarking websites and such. So like that's the good thing about being in law school. Like you have people to help you, and they're professionals. They know how to design processes to like find jobs you're interested in. So yeah, I think like relying on them is what I would do. And then after that, definitely reaching out to alumni. And you don't also like, that's two other advice I wanted to give you before I go. First, don't wait until positions are open. Like email people. Like don't be afraid to email people. Like if they are Brooklyn alum, it's great. If they're not, it's fine. You can do that too. The second thing is that you can volunteer at the clinics here, even as 1Ls, especially if you have a language skills. And maybe you're going to find your 1L year a bit removed from your interests in public interest. And so this is a great way to like gain some meaningful experience. And usually when you volunteer with the clinics, it's not like you have to go every week. It's like they'll be like, can you help? And if you can help that week, you say yes. If you can't, you can't. And so that's good too. Like that's compatible with like a 1L schedule. So yeah, that's just something I would recommend. And that helps you get an internship because you can put it on your resume after. Okay, yeah, sorry, I talked for a while. This is my email address. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And the person at the Career Center is Jacqueline Chenet. We keep calling her Jackie, but I realize...
Yeah, Jackie, and then also Danielle.
Yeah, and also Danielle is great, because really you don't know who they are, so yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can add a few things to that as well. don't be shy to email people. I will echo that. I got my first job second job rather, cold emailing an organization and attaching my resume and saying that I was interested in immigration work, which then led to a different position, which is kind of like taking me down the path that I've taken. So I would highly recommend emailing people. And off of that, I actually worked with 3 spare BLS alum in prior nonprofit work. So they're out there everywhere in New York City. But to your question, depending on what you're interested in, if you're interested in immigration at all, I can definitely connect you to some things. But there's something called the Immigrant Advocates Network, I believe, and it's a map of the United States with every organization that does immigration work. And you can go to each state and you'll get kind of a drop down of the organization, what they do. And that's how I find a lot of the places that I've connected to. And then through the work that I've done, people have pointed me in different directions. So I think there's definitely value in Rosalie's approach. Maybe it's more organized, but a lot of the way that I found places is just kind of searching online, and then you get connected to another place, and that connects you to another place. But if anyone's interested in any of the subject areas that I mentioned, please reach out, because I've got a list.
I had a different experience as well. So, kind of similar to what Rosalie was talking about. I knew I wanted public interest and litigation, and I knew that I probably wasn't going to get that after my first year. That didn't deter me from trying, but like I just knew the reality was that I come from a very corporate background that had nothing to do with public interest. So, kind of clawing my way into that, I knew that I had to like make baby steps in order to get to where I really wanted. And Danielle Sorkin at the Career Center, she really helped me kind of like put that into perspective and what that roadmap looked like. So in February, there's the PILC Fair, which is the Public Interest Law. I don't know what it stands for. But it's a huge fair. And anyway, there's like hundreds of employers or whatever, however many there are. And I just remember my first year, what I did was I made a spreadsheet where I just like copied all of the organizations in, and then I just like rated them like my personal interest level, and that I just like applied to like my top like 20 or something like that. And which seems really it sounds like it's a ton of work, and it didn't take more than like a day or so to do it all. And so that really like helped me shape also like have an understanding of what's out there, and knowing like, oh, that was interesting to me because of this, and this wasn't so much interesting to me because of this, and like looking through what the job descriptions were and what the organizations were, I found that to be just like a really helpful exercise just in general.
Yeah, and you heard about how I got this one, but like just to clarify, like, so like my first year, the 85 like applications, like horrible, right? But like to be fair, like you will probably do like 1,000 cover letters and stuff like through your time here, and like the way I got my first internship, it was at BKA, where it was like housing and foreclosure, so nothing to do with international human rights, right? But I got that through going to like a talk they did on Zoom, and then emailing the founder and saying, hey, do you have any internships? But what I did was even though that seems like it has nothing to do with international human rights, you build your narrative, right? So you might not have something your first term that's even remotely close to what you think you want to do. And I've always been very zoned in on international human rights, this whole time. But it's a very niche market to get into, and it's really kind of hard if you don't know anyone, or if you've never gone down this path before. So I've, throughout all my internships, I've created a narrative of like, okay, well, housing is a human right. I believe that. Boom, next thing. And you just really believe in yourself, and you like get that confidence up next time you talk to someone. And I definitely did the PILC Fair, although for me, I didn't get anything really used. I got some interviews from it, but I didn't get any offers. So like I said, I've done a lot of like things like networking. I think I'm better in front of people. So like, going to talks, if any organizations have any presentations like on Zoom, anything like that, a lot of people put their email in the chat afterward. Now you have their email. I did that when I was in DC, you know, like some people that I love that I think are like my human rights heroes. I was like, oh my God, I finally get to meet you. Boom, ask for their email, you know. It's like, that's how you find things. That's how I found things. It also doesn't hurt to like, since international human rights is one of those things that just so niche, like I've Googled and like some other schools have like worksheets, even if they're old, that have like a list of places to apply to. Like Columbia has one, UCLA has one, and you can just look at those organizations and start applying. So I would just kind of like find some things that are maybe a little untraditional, like, and I'm kind of like, once you get in the groove of looking for jobs, you're always going to be like, for me, it's like LinkedIn, PSJD, and Simplicity every day. I'm like checking those like on a rotation, and like soon you'll be like tuned into that world. But like once you're, right now, you might not be like totally tuned into that because like you're probably, you know, doing 1L, studying for school and stuff like that. But the way I've gone into it is just, you know, be open to take things that don't seem like they'll fit, as long as you can be confident that you'll spin the narrative that no, this goes into what I want to do. So yeah, and also like my name is my email, so you know, at Brooke Law. So you guys can feel free to email me. I can give you my number if you want to chat more informally or anything like that. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, this is all such helpful advice. I'm thinking like, I mean, for Spera, but also even beyond. And I just wanted to highlight a few more, which is like Blisby, the Brooklyn Law Students for Public Interest has a mentorship program. And then also as some of these guys mentioned, like different affinity groups for like International Law Society, or there's criminal law, and different pro bono groups. And again, it's not like you have to join every one, but those are all good ways to meet second and third years who've been there. And then also I would say, you know, definitely Danielle and Jackie in the Career Center, and then faculty too. I've had students email me who are like, I'm interested in family law, I'm interested in representing like juveniles and criminal, or whatever it is. I think people are really responsive. We have a lot of public interest, including people new this year who are amazing, but if you can look at the faculty directory. But I think all of this is to say that public interest work, and you guys probably already know this, it does require sort of more initiative to go out and get it, because it's not like firms like OCI on campus, which is only for, you know, a small percentage of firms anyway, but like the big law firms, like they come to campus and they whatever, and it's just much more like set out for you, and they have associate programs. And even at the biggest, so I worked at Legal Aid, which is the biggest public interest organization in the country, probably the world, I guess, and even then it's like some, you know, they still, their recruitment or hiring isn't that organized. Like, you know, when someone said, I think it was Sarah, like, or maybe it was Rosalie, like apply even if it doesn't say it's open. I've had people like, well, because they're just not, they don't have the resources to be coming to it. So that's all to say, just nothing is like the wrong thing to do. It's just like reach out. It does take more effort, but as these guys will tell you, and as you guys probably already know or will find out, it is just such, you know, rewarding, amazing work. So other questions? Yeah.
So stop me if you're gonna get to this in the other part, but I'm curious about like in the application, like as 1Ls, like how we can demonstrate like our current involvement, even though we have to like studying like 1L delegate meetings, etc. Like
Yeah, totally. I think that is a challenge. I'm just going to move down so it doesn't seem weird. That I'm like, yeah, and I think that's a challenge, and something that the faculty committee and the fellows, when we had sort of a transition a couple of years ago, have really tried to work on, because there's also like equity issues. Like sometimes people have had to work in other fields or just have it anyway because of financial things. So it's a hard balance. But I will say, just don't limit it to, like, first of all, don't think you have to limit it to law experiences. Like some people come in with like, we're a paralegal at Legal Aid, but a lot of people don't. So it could be other kinds of social justice or public interest experiences, like in college, before college, after college. You know, so lots of things qualify. It could be volunteer work. It could be some kind of, you know, government work, even though we don't fund government positions, but government work that, you know, is social justice. And also unfortunately, none of the faculty members who were on the selection committee last year could be here, but they gave me some advice because they have class and other things right now. But it's also like, just in the essay, first of all, like also they really want to get to know you. Like, there's no one right answer, right? Like, it's not like everybody, you know, it's like, oh, you are a paralegal at a public interest organization and you always knew you wanted to be a public defender. That's definitely one kind of person, great candidate for SPARE, but there's also people who, through their own lived experience, have, you know, have come to understand, like, immigration justice or other issues. So it's really individualized, and just trying to think broadly about public interest, and don't worry about that it's just like one out. No, and for second years applying, it is a little more like, you know, they do want to see like that you have used your time at law school, but first semester of 1Ls, people understand that there's not going to be a whole lot necessarily, even or even anything necessarily that's law related. Do you guys
Also,
want to add? Yeah.
Danielle will. I know Danielle. But that's who I work with at the Public Interest Career Center. But Jackie, I'm sure would too. Like, they help you with this, and the way that they're going to help you craft your cover letter. And basically, for me, my SPARE application was kind of a rejiggering of my cover letter. So they'll help you craft that narrative and put together a good application too.
Yeah, I would add just a quick plug too for a couple pro bono projects. If you're looking to do some public interest work that's not doesn't feel like too much of a commitment, the Uncontested Divorce Project is a great opportunity to get involved in. Really low commitment. It spanned the whole semester, but I did not feel overwhelmed by it at all. But that's just like a side plug. And I also run the Courtroom Advocates Project with a couple other people, so if that's something that you're interested in, definitely reach out as well. But I feel like passion is really, at the end of the day, I worked to hire some people at my old job at a nonprofit I worked at, and something that we just cared a lot about was genuine passion for the work. And so I think even if you don't have experience, as Brianna was saying and Professor Godso, like shaping that narrative of why you care about this, like why do you want to do this, right? I think that's really important to a lot of just general public interest organizations, and I'm guessing I haven't been involved in the SPARE application process other than applying myself, but I'm sure that's something that they also care a lot about.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And just sort of to point also that Brianna made earlier, like it's not, even if you haven't been able to work like in an area that you're interested in, but sort of, you know, having that nerve, like I remember a long time ago, I graduated from law school, it was much more like you went into this kind of work, you went into that kind of work, and it was like I had this amazing mentor who was like, no, it's really about like community service. Like, let's face it, like people now realize this much more, but like immigration and family defense and criminal defense and poverty law, basically almost everything, and human rights and housing, it's all the same populations.
Yeah.
We all know it's like low income, disproportionately people of color. Like that is, you know, who it is, and it's sort of like a big part of it is not like which door do you want to go into with those people, because I also know people, like, you know, I had an old student who really wanted to go into criminal defense and she couldn't get a job, and then she did family defense in the early days, which is representing parents who are accused of abuse and neglect, which is almost, if there's any system that's worse than the criminal system or maybe the immigration system, it's that, and then she ended up loving it. And so it's so I think it's really about what the issues that are important to you and passion for it, and the communities that you want to work with or know about or part of, as opposed to like, oh, I need to know a lot about like criminal procedure to be able to do this. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, no, it's great. This is helpful to everybody, and it's also being recorded, which is helpful for. No, I think it's
okay,
great.
Let me
To,
another one-on question.
Yeah, no, that's totally. I think
So kind of similar to this question was like with letter recommendation or like references from faculty here. Like we don't know anyone.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and I'm.
People who did recs to get in.
Yes, totally. And I actually want to say there is a corrected. I know some people had looked at it before, and it was like language that I thought had been changed, and so I apologize. It's confusion. But now the language on it says only like for faculty recommendations. For 1Ls, it's only if you feel comfortable, and nothing will be held against you for not doing that. So if there is like in a smaller like class or even a bigger class, but if there's, you know, if you feel like you have a little bit to know, then you can put them down. But definitely recommenders from that you use to get into law school. That's what a lot of 1Ls use, or other sort of employers or whatever. So absolutely, you do not have to have a faculty recommendation at all, and it's totally understandable. That's why we changed the language, because it used to always ask for that, and then I think a lot of 1Ls felt like it's obviously a lot to ask when you have like huge classes, and maybe you're not the most, you know, you don't like to speak out in large classes, which is very normal. So don't worry about that at all. And also, again, Danielle and Jackie can help guide. If you have a choice of like which letter, definitely just submit one, or you could submit one and put a faculty member down, but I wouldn't submit like 5 letters of recommendation. It's not necessarily gonna, like they might just not read them all because it might be, unfair to other people. So don't think it's like volume, it's more like quality. Someone who knows you and is able to speak to your passion.
And also think about your legal writing professors. You
Yeah,
might know
that's
them
very
more.
true. Quite a few of whom are pretty involved with SPARA as well. Like, not that it has to be at all someone who's involved with SPARA, but quite a few of them have like public interest or public service backgrounds.
Yeah.
Other questions? So I wanted to highlight that point about the recommendation. And again, I apologize for the error. Like people had asked before, but just to emphasize, like, it is really helpful and I think important to put down when it says, is there any particular employer or organization, like put down a few. It just shows that you've done a bit of research. But again, no one's gonna hold you to that if you end up not wanting to do that or certainly not getting a position there, but it's just to show, like, if you wanna go into immigration law, you should have like a little idea of like what city you wanna work into or what state or whatever, and maybe 1 or 2 organizations. But again, everyone understands, like a lot of people, you wouldn't have detailed information, but you have done at least a little research. Let's see. When it says, I just want to be clear, because again, this is something that has sort of changed in recent years from the way the fellowship used to operate, I think for the better and to be more inclusive. It says it may review your academic transcript. That is really only, it used to be partly based on sort of GPA. It's really not anymore. It's just if there's like a really, and I know this won't happen to anyone's dream, but if you're, at risk of like being dismissed, it's like they don't want another burden on people, but it's really just for that very exceptional thing. It's really more based on the things we've been talking about, commitment and passion, and experience in social justice work. It's not an academic. It's not an academic thing. Like it's not, academics are not a prerequisite. Good grades are not a prerequisite for it, because that's not not that, succeeding in law school is obviously important, but it's not what's most valued in the fellowship. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you guys so much. We should give it for all your amazing work this summer. And I just want to say, so if people can't come to the session tomorrow, which will have different speakers, that's totally understandable. But it will be recorded, just like this one is, and the recordings will be up on the website hopefully soon. But please feel free to email any of us, and Danielle and Jackie, who couldn't be here, but are very, very helpful.
Yes, they're the best.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, of course.